The identity of the entity is something that has been kept very mysterious for the past 5 years of Dead by Daylight. It's unclear entirely what the entity is, and also what the entity wants. To maybe get some clarity, we could first look to what the entity may be based on. One inspiration that many will immediately go to is that of H.P Lovecraft, and the monsters or creatures he wrote about, one of the most famous being Cthulhu. H.P Lovecraft has quite clearly been an inspiration for Behaviour and the design of the entity in particular. This can be potentially backed up by some similar phrasing and such in the lore. Lovecraft's first work was named The Alchemist, the same name for the first entry within the tomes, and the name utilised prior to revealing the character of the Blight. For the entity, a Lovecraft creature named Nyarlathotep specifically appears to be the inspiration out of the different H.P Lovecraft creations. That was actually a name mentioned a lot in the comments of some of my theory videos also, asking me to draw a comparison between them. So what is, or who is, Nyarlathotep? And why could they possibly be the inspiration for the entity? Well, to figure that out, I did some research into this creature and further read the original work containing the Nyarlathotep, which holds the same name, to hopefully confirm or deny if this could have reasonably been the inspiration, and if so, if it could reveal something about the entity that we don't yet know. First off, some interesting names Nyarlathotep goes by, or aliases it has effectively, are the Crueling Chaos, the Faceless God, the Dark One, Blind Faceless One, Stalker Among the Stars, and the Crueling Mist. All of these seemed interesting to me, and they all seemed reminiscent of how the entity is often depicted as a creeping dark mist that consumes worlds, specifically dark and corrupted worlds and those inside of them. At its base level, Nyarlathotep is mentioned as a faceless god in the caverns of the Earth's center. Another interesting comparison, as the entity's realm is often referred to by the observer as the infernal dimension, and the devs have mentioned that the deeper into the ground you go when in the realm, the closer you are to the entity's heart, which is also lore-wise why the basement is considered to hold such a dark power within it. Other accounts of Nyarlathotep are more physical and comprehensible ones where it appears as a monster of some kind. In The Haunter of the Dark, he appears as a nocturnal, tentacled, bat-winged monster, similar to our entity's often spider-like appearance which it takes up. Throughout the stories that Nyarlathotep is in, there is darkness and there is death and decay. It's said that wherever Nyarlathotep went, people would be plagued by vivid nightmares, a strange and brooding apprehension of hideous physical danger, as may be imagined only in the most terrible phantasms of the night. Much like Dead by Daylight's entity, Nyarlathotep can intervene with the human mind and manipulate and control it, liking it with dark thoughts and twist minds into submission, corrupt the humanity within. This corruption then allowing the entity to take the person into its realm. Okay, but aside it being an evil deity, why are these two similar? An interesting thing to note upon is the origins of Nyarlathotep, who is said in the original short story to be incredibly ancient and look like a pharaoh. It further says he had risen up out of the blackness of 27 centuries, and that he heard messages from places not on this planet. Two things here that I believe to be interesting. First, 27 centuries, it had been asleep or dormant. This is a time span that reasonably goes further back than any of our characters in Dead by Daylight, the closest to this being the Plague. Its appearance as a pharaoh is also interesting due to our oldest character being a Babylonian high priestess in ancient Egypt, where the ruler would have been the pharaoh. At the end of the Nyarlathotep short story, Nyarlathotep is described like this: a sickened shadow writhing in hands that are not hands, and whirled blindly past ghastly midnights of rotting creation, corpses of dead worlds and souls that were cities, charnel winds that brush the pallid stars and make them flicker low. Beyond the world's vague ghosts of monstrous things, half-seen columns of unsanctified temples that rest on nameless rocks beneath space and reach up to dizzy vacua above spheres of light and darkness. And through this revolting graveyard of the universe, the muffled, maddening beating of drums, and thin, monotonous whine of blasphemous flutes from inconceivable, unlighted chambers beyond time. The detestable pounding and piping whereunto dance slowly, awkwardly, and absurdly thy gigantic, tenebrous ultimate gods, the blind, voiceless, mindless gargoyles, whose soul is Nyarlathotep. This to me could literally just as easily be a description of the entity. Or possibly not the entity, but maybe the observer. There are other further things to note when it comes to Nyarlathotep. For example, he is said to have 1,000 other forms and manifestations, most reputed to be quite horrific and sanity blasting. Where many outer gods use strange languages, Nyarlathotep uses human languages and can easily pass for a human being if he chooses to do so. Unlike the other outer gods, spreading madness is more important and enjoyable than death and destruction to Nyarlathotep. It is suggested by some that he will destroy the human race, and possibly the Earth as well. Finally, most of them are all powerful, yet evidently without clear purpose or agenda. Yet Nyarlathotep seems to be deliberately deceptive and manipulative, and even uses propaganda to achieve his goals. In this regard, he's probably the most human-like among the outer gods. In the original short piece of prose, Nyarlathotep as this pharaoh-like man is performing a series of magic tricks before a crowd. Further, Nyarlathotep has cults a bit like the Entity and the Black Veil. In the story it states that he wanders the earth gathering legions of followers through his demonstrations of strange and seemingly magical instruments. These followers lose awareness of the world around them, and through the narrator's increasingly unreliable accounts, the reader gets a sense of the world's utter collapse. The story ends with the narrator as part of an army of servants for Nyarlathotep. The survivors and killers are very much servants to the Entity, and in a similar way under its spell, corrupted by some kind of dark magic. In Lovecraftian lore, Nyarlathotep is a servant to a more powerful being named Azathoth, who is said to be the very creature or thing to have created the universe itself, preceding even ancient beings. Again, this is highly similar to how the Entity is depicted, said to precede the Earth, or Terra Primus, the first Earth within the multiverse, and potentially existence as we know it. To the observer, a human from the first Terra world within the multiverse, the Entity is ancient, and the observer even mentions the possibility of it being from the beginning of time itself, a lot like Lovecraft's Azathoth. So, who's Azathoth? Azathoth, also known as the Blind Idiot God and the Nuclear Chaos, is the overarching antagonist of the Cthulhu mythos. He is a cosmic and boundless deity of colossal proportion and the great and all-powerful ruler of the outer gods. He is omnipotent beyond the power of the great older ones, such as Cthulhu, and even his fellow outer gods, and is the sole most powerful being in the entire mythos. Azathoth is seen as the all-powerful creator of all of existence. According to Lovecraft, all of reality is merely a part of Azathoth's dream, unknowingly created by itself. When, not if, Azathoth awakens, all things will end, once and for all, and all will once again be Azathoth. So the idea is that maybe the Entity isn't actually controlling itself in the way we think, instead that the Entity is more similar to Azathoth, the blind god who is effectively sleeping, with the realm running as a means to keep the Entity asleep. Potentially then the observer, who is from Terra Primus, the original or first Earth, is more like Nyarlathotep, appearing more often as a human man, generally dressed in dark clothing and using magic tricks to bide the reader or viewer onto his side, or us in this case. Also due to his manipulation of the fog and seemingly somewhat twisted enjoyment of the pain and suffering of the survivors and killers. The observer kind of fits the bill, potentially more so for Nyarlathotep than the Entity does. Next, let's consider what does the Entity actually want. I think it's then important to consider why the Entity does what it does, or if it even realizes what it's doing or the pain it's causing. It appears that the Entity does things based on reaction. Much of the time there is not intent behind it, at least inside of the realm. We can see this, for example, when a survivor gets on their second hook and the claws appear. This happens in the same way every time and seems to be more of a reaction rather than something with intent, I guess. In fact, every way we interact with the Entity within the realm is somewhat passive, through the claws, blocking of generators and different things like that. It's typically down to the actions of the people in the trials and not directly the Entity. To us this seems bad, but to the Entity maybe this is just how it is, and the evil intent really lies with the observer. The realm that we are encased in when we play the game is something like a twitch to something so powerful, possibly. In the 1961 Stanislaw Lem novel Solaris, there is a planet named Solaris, which I want to talk about quickly as I think this may have been inspiration also, or at least there's a link here. Solaris is a planet which creates these things that humans call visitors. These visitors are constructions of people that the humans have lost, brought back to life in the way that the humans remember them by Solaris. And initially the humans assume that the planet is doing this purposefully to try and irritate them or torment them. For the protagonist of this novel, Dr. Kelvin, he has a visitor who is his dead wife Rhea. The argument behind the creation of the visitors is a curious one, as some of the humans believe that Solaris is doing it to manipulate them, and others believe that the planet is simply acting on impulse due to the arrival of something foreign onto its shores. Much like the Entity's mist being a part of its consciousness, Solaris as a planet has a sentient sea that covers its surface. Basically, the Entity is so powerful and large, what makes it so clear that it wants something? Why can it not simply be alive, and upon people entering its realm, it is feeding off of their emotions, but again with no intention or cause, but through pure reaction. What we may see as something negative or bad, to the Entity is just something that it does. The way that Solaris creates visitors from the memories of the humans is also very reminiscent of how the entity creates or distorts things of its own through use of the auric fog, and also how memories become distorted within the auric fog when the observer watches them back. Humans, or the human race, are possibly special to the entity. Nyarlathotep is described to be capable of destroying humanity if he wished, but decides against it, presumably for the reason that he enjoys tormenting them. Humans are special and Nyarlathotep's favourite thing, so for the entity it could be a similar situation where humans are the best source of emotion it can find. There's other more advanced or less advanced species out there, but humans create emotion the best, and so the entity keeps itself from destroying the human race, instead resigning itself to taking a few and feeding on them for a greater degree of power, or more so, the observer getting these people to feed the entity to keep it asleep. Maybe when a better option becomes available will be the time when the entity decides to move on, or the observer does. So my guess is that the entity is based on H.P Lovecraft, but that its goals, much like Azathoth's or Solaris's, are simply reactionary and a product of the entity existing. Whereas the true malice of the entity, the corruption and tormenting of minds and worlds, is truly the observer's doing, as he's the man who manipulates the fog and can see inside to witness the memories within it. He's also ancient and guiding this blind godly mass to survival through collecting survivors and killers, to make sure it never truly awakes, as if it were to, the world and all we know of it would end. So the suffering of few saves the many. Alright, that's gonna do it. Let me know what you think about all this. Thanks, and goodbye.